and welcome to the first part in our Reactor team series. We're really excited to be running this 5-part series through the Reactor. So we've been working with the MVP community and all of our speakers are from that community. So we're really excited to be opening this opportunity up to our community and running these series, and really hope there's some key takeaways from each episode. So today's session will be on best practices for meetings and is delivered by Chris Horde. So Chris is a Microsoft certified trainer regional lead, and we're very excited to have him with us this morning. And his session's also being moderated by Vesa. So we'll get a bit more of an introduction from Chris in the next couple of moments. Just to give those of you a bit of background into Reactors in case that you're not too familiar. So Reactors are local community spaces for developer and startups to meet, learn and connect. So Reactors build this community by providing presentations, industry speakers, hands-on workshops, and plus meetups and community events, which are all related to emerging technology trends. And Reactors themselves are physical event spaces where we would usually hold these types of sessions, but given current circumstances, we're now holding these sessions on our online platform instead. So getting back to today's session, it will be 1 hour long. There is time for Q&A throughout, and we do welcome any questions that you have. We'll make sure they're all answered by the end of the session. Without further ado, I will hand over to Chris to kick us off. So Chris, if you'd like to take over.
Thank you ever so much, Emma, and welcome everyone. And thank you ever so much for taking the time to come along and listen to a little bit about Microsoft Teams meetings. So to introduce myself, my name is Chris Horde. I'm a partner education lead for Vusion in the UK. Vusion are a tier 2 CSP distributor. I myself am a Microsoft certified trainer, a regional lead, and I'm an Office apps and services MVP. And supporting me with this session and who will be moderating the Q&A is Vesa Nopanen. Vesa is a consultant at Sulava Oy in Finland. He's a good community friend of mine. I've known Vesa for a few years now, and we've worked together as MVPs. His knowledge in the area of Microsoft Teams is astounding. If you follow him on Twitter or LinkedIn, or as we are speaking today, to come and join us at Teams Fest, which is an event we're holding on Microsoft Teams on October the 7th. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today about Microsoft Teams meetings. In addition, there has been some other contributors to the content here today. First of all, Karolina Ketkari, who's a consultant in Melt Lake, also in Finland. Matt Wade, a consultant at Jump to 365 in the US. And Randy Chapman, an architect at Simity. They've helped with the content in order to put this together. So credit is not just to Vesa today for doing the moderating, but also these awesome content contributors. So about the series, as Emma was saying, this is the first in a series all about Microsoft Teams, and the series is really, I guess, about making the best out of meetings and live events and for organizing events using Microsoft Teams. This and the other sessions have been previously delivered to Microsoft MVPs and to Reconnect MVPs, but this series has been completely refreshed and updated with all of the latest functionality. So in a sense, you're getting something that has been tried and tested, but is also new with a lot of what you need to know. Secondly, I just have to say that this session unfortunately doesn't contain any material that's NDA or pre-Ignite. Ignite, of course, is coming up next week. Everything you see is either GA or it's on the Microsoft 365 roadmap. So it's all out there in the wild, and you can take a look at the roadmap or take a deeper look into Teams and you will find the functionality there. So right before we start off and think about discussing the intelligent meeting lifecycle, the first thing I would like to say about using Microsoft Teams meetings is that we have recently had a new experience with Teams meetings, and this includes features such as meeting controls, which are now in the header instead of floating in front of the screen, pop out meetings in the same way that chats have previously popped out, meetings and calls now previously pop out, and new cutting edge functionality such as large gallery mode, which is large 7x7, together mode, which brings everyone together, or focus mode. We'll be discussing a little bit more about those later, but if you're still on the old meeting experience, now is the perfect time to update to the new. Very, very simple. All you need to do in Microsoft Teams is to come up to your avatar, select settings, make sure in the settings, and you will see this in the desktop client, you will see a setting that basically says to update to the new meetings experience, and then you quit and restart Teams. That's exactly what it will look like in the settings. So it's a really simple 4-step process. You don't need to log out or log back in. Select that avatar, select settings, tick the new meeting experience, quit and restart Teams. Also as well, promote this throughout your organizations or with your customers. The more people that can get onto the new experience now, the more that can access this new experience. And indeed, when we talk through all the features today, we will be doing so with all screenshots of the new meeting experience. So the intelligent meeting lifecycle, when we talk about meetings in Microsoft Teams, we often use the intelligent meeting lifecycle in order to discuss them. Now, what is the intelligent meeting lifecycle? The intelligent meeting lifecycle is a way which we use to structure meetings. It's used to compartmentalize the distinct parts of the meeting in order to be able to manage them better. And as you can see, that there are 3 distinct parts, quite similar to a drama or the works of Shakespeare. We can break down the meeting like we break down a play into 3 acts. The first part is the pre-meeting, what we do before the meeting itself, what we do when we consider things such as scheduling, when we consider things such as tracking, or consider things such as who it is we want to invite. The second part is the meeting itself. What happens during the meeting? What controls have we got in order to manage it as organizers? And what functionalities can we use as attendees? Finally, the third part, the end, as you will, is the post-meeting. What do we do after the meeting has occurred? What ways can we follow up with attendees and move us on to the next meeting? So as we go through today and discuss all of the features, functionalities and best practices within the meeting, we will be doing so in this context of the intelligent meeting lifecycle. So starting out with the pre-meeting, what are the things we have to consider? Firstly, we need to consider what kind of meeting do we need? Do we need to think about having a standard Teams meeting, or do we need to go down the route of live events? There are different ways in order to hold Teams meetings, and you need to be aware so that you can make the best choice and the best format. Secondly, it's about creating a meeting and being able to set it up. That is the basis of what we're doing when we're booking our meetings. We need to know how we can invite people. We need to know how we can put an agenda in the meeting. We need to know if that meeting's recurring. Third and fourth, we need to learn about etiquette, both for organizers and also for attendees. Because whilst it's important in terms of understanding the technology, having a good meeting is also about showing and displaying good behaviors. If we can do so, if we can help all of us get into the right mindset, then meetings go a lot better than if we didn't try to promote and enforce those behaviors. So starting out, what we actually need. The first is the Teams private meeting. Now this is one that you have probably already used already in Microsoft Teams. The private meeting, I'll just go and show you how to set up a private meeting. So going into my demo environment, I go over to the calendar, I pick a time slot, or I select new meeting, but I'm just going to click the time slot. I'm going to select my meeting. I'm going to add an attendee. So I'm going to have this meeting with Vesku. I'm going to then just type in some notes that I want him to know about. Once I've done that, I then send him the meeting. So this is what we call a private meeting. This meeting is a many-to-many experience, which means that everyone who attends that meeting can interact with each other. The private meeting has a 300 user limit. Thirdly, it's designed typically for internal and external users, so both within and outside of the organization. And it's all about chatting and sharing content, discussing ideas. Teams private meetings are typically 90% of what happens in Teams today. If you've been invited to a Teams meeting from another organization, then typically that's a Teams private meeting. The second is the Teams channel meeting. Now, channel meetings, okay, are rather than being designed for internal and external users, these are meetings that are more typically designed for the team and the Microsoft 365 group that is linked to that team. They are typically meetings that are run within the organizations for sprints or weekly meetings. And in order to be able to set that up, again, if I come to book my meeting, I will put in my channel meeting. And again, I'll invite Vesku and I'll invite Adam. At this time, I will add a channel. So you can see I've got a number of teams here. I'm going to add this to the Power Platform admin team and I'm going to add it to general. That's where I'm going to hold. So everyone who's in that Power Platform admin team will be able to access this meeting. And then I'm going to put in my notes and click send. And now that channel meeting is going to book. And if I look inside, so I go to my team and I go to my admin team, you can see there is my channel meeting, and closer to the time that will have a little button on it where I can join that channel meeting. Third, we have the ability to do meet now. So these are instant meetings and they can be used for private meetings or they can be used for the channel. Inside Teams, there you will see the meet now button, which instantly starts that meeting. Again, in the calendar, I will also have a meet now button. And last but not least, we have live events. Now, live events differ a little bit from standard Teams meetings because live events a one-to-many experience, up to 10,000 users. If you've ever seen a TED Talk, I mean, you're attending a live event right now. It is, if you can consider more towards a lecture scenario or a presentation scenario. And if we're within our organization, typical scenarios are like the CEO talking to the rest of their business, or the product manager doing a product demonstration for all of their partners or customers. Live meetings contain Q&A and they can record up to 4 hours. That's standard live events. Now, live events isn't going to be in the today, is going to be in next week's session, so that's going to dig more into live events. But it's important right from the very start as to whether you do one of the 3 types of meeting above or whether you go down the route of having a live event, and they are very much determined on how you want to run your meeting and what you want to achieve. But also some considerations. The first is that Microsoft recently brought out the advanced communication SKU. In other words, you can up the limit on standard Teams meetings. So applying the advanced communication SKU will allow you to have meetings of up to 1,000 users or overflow meetings of up to 20,000 users. An overflow meeting means is that whilst 1,000 users can chat and interact, the other 19,000 can attend and listen in, but they will not be able to interact, for example, in the chat. In addition, the advanced communication SKU also ups the limits on live events to 20,000 users and to 16 hours of recording. So if you're holding those all-day events, the advanced communication SKU is going to be perfect for that. Just bear in mind also that with live events, you also need licensing, and if you're having Teams meetings and you want to either dial out via PSTN or dial in, that requires audio conferencing. But for standard VoIP meetings over Microsoft Teams to have private channel or meet now, there isn't any licensing ads. So it's a good time when choosing what type of meeting you to consider who you can ultimately invite to a Teams meeting. Now, there's a bit of a myth that's going around in the tech community on message boards such as Reddit that you need a Teams license or a Teams application or a Microsoft account in order to join a Microsoft Teams meeting. That simply isn't true. You can invite anyone to a Teams meeting. They only need an internet connection and a browser in to join that meeting, and of course a mailbox in order to be able to receive the invite. But what you do need to be aware of, so whilst you can invite anyone, the web experience can differ in a Microsoft meeting dependent upon what internet browser that you are currently using. So we would recommend Edge and Chrome in this situation, as they are fully supported. We wouldn't recommend, for example, Firefox or Internet Explorer 11, because you're not going to get the optimum web experience. Just yesterday, they announced that Safari is going to support video, so that's making a lot of advances in Safari, but still today the ones that are fully supported are Edge and Chrome. Now, in terms of actually creating the meeting, I really just showed how to do this within the calendar within Microsoft Teams. So going to into my demo environment, I'm just going to break that down a little bit. Inside the calendar, as said, you can click on new meeting to start one, or you can click on the time slot. And so you would fill in information that you are probably familiar through Outlook when booking your meetings. You fill in the meeting title. I fill in my attendees. So again, I'm going to invite Vesku to the meeting. You set the date and time. You can set it to an all-day meeting. You can set to be able to repeat. You would then decide to choose the channel if you have a physical location. So I'm going to set this as, remote. And then you would put in any meeting notes. And this meeting notes is often where people use to put an agenda into. So you can create your meeting via Teams. You can also create your meeting via Outlook. Now, there are two places with which to do so in Outlook. The first is the new items drop down, as you can see on this first image. The second is to open the calendar and then select new Teams meeting, as you will see in the top image. And again, the information that you will need to set in the Outlook meeting is almost identical, apart from what you will set within Teams. So you have the title, the attendees, the date and time. If it's repeating, you will set a location and you will put notes in. The only thing you will not actually put in Outlook is the channel. So I put that there because some people have thought that you can actually set the channel within Outlook. Currently you can't, but there is a Teams user voice that's open for that currently. So we can create our meetings for Microsoft Teams both through Teams and through Outlook. And that makes a lot of sense because we are used to doing so in Outlook, but going forward, we're using Teams more and more. So Microsoft at this time are giving us a choice to how we want to create our meetings. Now, some of the tools that we have that are available to us to enhance that creation experience. The first is through meeting invitations in Outlook. We can customize them. We've got the ability in the Teams Admin Center. So just going into my demo environment, I'm going to open up the Teams Admin Center. So this is just going to open up right now, just waiting for it. Reload that, just opening up. There we go. Click Show All. And I'm just going to go to the Teams Admin Center. So if you are not familiar with the Teams Admin Center today, this is where administrators inside your organization will administer the whole of Teams inside your organization. And if we want to customize what the meeting invitation will look like, we will go to the meeting, we will go to the meeting settings. So that's just going to take a second to load up. And as you can see here in this section, you can customize that meeting invitation. You can put a logo URL, if you've got a legal URL, if you want to put help, or if you want to put notes in the footer, and then you can preview the invite directly within the Teams admin center. And you would use this in a situation just to make things more personalized for your organization, rather than something generic just coming through to the person that you're inviting to the meeting. They know it's you by kind of making sure that you are familiar and that you've got a presence and you've got your logo in there. Then you can make this much more personalized to your users or to your partners and customers. Secondly, you've got a range of scheduling tools across Teams and Outlook, which can help you in terms of scheduling. Now, as seen, creating a meeting either through Teams or through Outlook is really, really simple. You've probably already done it already, but we have to take scheduling into consideration. Now, first of all, looking at the scheduling assistant, I'm going into Microsoft Teams. I'm just going to discard that for a second and go into a meeting that I previously booked. Okay, if I come up to the top, I have my scheduling assistant. Now, if I go to book a new meeting, I also have the scheduling assistant. So it's consistent, and you can look at the schedules both before booking a meeting and after booking a meeting. And we would use the scheduling assistant to be able to coordinate and know when best in order to be able to book that meeting. We all lead very, very busy lives, whether we're working in the office or working remote in this new hybrid, new normal. Scheduling is really, really important. There's things we have to consider. Do people have enough time to get to the meeting? Do people have too many meetings back to back? You know, what's the best time that we are all available to be able to hold the meeting and get everyone's full participation? In Outlook, you have the find time ability, which is very similar to the scheduling assistant, but it uses AI in order to calculate what is the optimum time to be able to schedule that meeting. And one of the things that I would recommend, and this can be a little bit of a hidden feature, is the default meeting time. So you know how you book in Outlook and it by default books an hour out. Well, maybe we want to reconsider that. So I changed my default meeting time to 30 minutes, which means that every single time I book through Outlook, it will automatically set a 30-minute meeting by default. You can also end appointments or meetings early, but you can set that in Outlook too. So that's a little bit of a hidden gem. You don't want to have to keep on booking meetings that are 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. In fact, Microsoft has done a lot of research recently to suggest that where a lot of us are working remotely now, we actually prefer short, sharp, punchy meetings. So you may want to set that down to 30, or if there's an option below that. In addition to building upon the scheduling, so we have the tools to be able to work out how to schedule meetings, I can recommend this meeting insights within Outlook. Now, within Outlook, this is typically in the ribbon. So if you don't see this, go and have a talk to your administrator. But Meeting Insights is part of the My Analytics service, and that helps you make a decision when a meeting is appropriate. So it's not just all about finding the right time and when everyone is available. It's also considering things like focus time. Do we have enough focus time? If we're having 4 or 5 or 6 meetings during the day, do we really need to add a 7th for that? Are we getting focus time to focus on our own individual workload? Secondly, after hours impact. By booking so many meetings during a day, am I pushing my focus work beyond the hours that I'm supposed to work? Now, we can all work asynchronously, but for many people, they still keep their hours, for example, 9 to 5. If we're having too many meetings, have I got enough time to focus, or is my workday suddenly getting extended hours beyond that? And also as well, Meeting Insights will show you things such as, are you having a break? Are you having lunch? Are you making sure that, you know, in a sense, you've got time to eat? Because we need to also have breaks away from our work. There are times when we don't need to just have focus time or have meeting time, but having a break is really important too, because if we don't have a break, then it can lead to underperforming in meetings. So meeting insights is really that mirror that's held up and reflects, are you doing the right things, and structuring your day in the right way to make sure that you have really good performance both in meetings and in your focus work. Now, meeting insights, for anyone who has the question, is this information visible to my line manager or the rest of my business? The answer to that is no. Meeting insights is personal to you and is built, again, like Find Time, on AI technologies, which looks at things like your calendar, your mailbox, and then uses AI to find the patterns for your working behavior, which it then makes the recommendations. One of the most important features that you've got available pre-meeting is the meeting options. Now, meeting options really control two major things. They contain what we call presenter and attendee roles, and also our ability to configure the lobby. Now, I'm just going to show, because I've spun this up previously before today, so that it didn't take time having to load up. Firstly, we can set a lobby on our Teams meeting. That's important because lobbies control who comes into the meeting at what time, or who can indeed bypass that lobby. So we have a few options here, as you can see. Firstly, we don't need to have a lobby at all. We can let everyone bypass the lobby and come straight into the meeting without having to wait. Secondly, we have people in my organization and trusted organizations. We then have only people in my organization, so I might want to let internal people in early, but I might not want to let customers or partners of my organization come in early. And finally, this has been an option that has been introduced recently called Only Me. Only Me means that everyone will have to wait in the lobby. So lobby is a really important way to be able to control that. And who can present? These are the presenter and attendee roles. So you can have everyone have a presenter role, only people in your organization, specific people, or only you. Now, what that looks like in terms of what people can and can't do is shown over on the right hand side here. So for example, if you're an organizer and a presenter, you can pretty much do everything within a Microsoft Teams meeting. What a presenter can't do, for example, is download the participant report, which contains information of who attended your meeting. But organizer and presenter, their roles are roughly the same. But if you set people as attendees from the very start before the meeting, you are limiting what they can do, and that might be absolutely necessary. Imagine the scenario like in a classroom environment. You do not want the general attendees to be able to share content, to be able to take control and hijack the presentation, to be able to mute other participants or to kick other people out of the meeting. So it really is best practice, if you can, is to set your presenter and attendee roles after you have scheduled the meeting, and it's very easy to do so. So if I go into the Teams calendar, I have my meeting. After I've booked the meeting, you can see here, this is where the meeting options, and simply by clicking on that, it will then take me to the meeting options page. So we need to get into this habit of setting the meeting options before we enter the meeting, whether we want a lobby or not. But it can, the default settings, so if you only want, for example, you to be the presenter and to have a lobby by default, these can be set in the Teams Admin Center or can be set in PowerShell. So meeting options really important. The same with tracking, knowing who has accepted the meeting. It's important that we know who's going to be there before we go to present. Now, two ways to do this. The first is in Teams. If I go in Teams, and the tracking is simply accessed by opening the meeting. So you go into your calendar, click on the calendar, and then the tracking would be down the right hand side. In Outlook, that would, you're probably quite familiar with the tracking. You go into your calendar in Outlook, you double click on the meeting instance, and then you select tracking, and then that will show whether somebody is accepted or someone has declined the meeting. If they've declined the meeting, for example, you can check up and then reach out to them and ask them if there's any way that they would reconsider, for example. Tracking is really important to know who is going to be there. Now, etiquette for the organisers. First of all, think who you invite. You really want to try and nail who is going to be in that meeting. But a lot of us have tendencies to invite as many people as we can to meetings, or just, for example, I'll go and invite that whole department, or I'll go and invite as many people as I can about that customer. Think who you can invite. You want to make sure that everyone sitting in that meeting absolutely needs to be there. Secondly, who does what? So you will notice today that I've got Vesa as a moderator. I did that specifically because I like to be able to speak rather than focus on the Q&A, but I want the Q&A answered at the same time because I know you have questions. So I've invited Vesku today to back me up and do the Q&A so we can achieve both at the same time. And that's really important about meetings. Don't think that you need to manage a Teams meeting all by yourself. Invite people to co-manage it for you, to co-present. Invite a person to be a moderator. Invite somebody to take meeting notes. Invite somebody to do the minutes. Get people to have meeting roles, and that will get them invested within the meeting. Create a meeting agenda. It's always important for there to be a structure inside. We've all been to meetings that have had no agenda. They tend to meander and go off on a tangent, and before you know it, you've already sat there for 20 minutes and nothing much has happened, or we've completely gone off the point of the meeting itself. You can put that in the Teams body. You can put an agenda using Microsoft Lists. You can do it within OneNote and then share the OneNote beforehand. There are lots of ways in Teams to be able to get that meeting agenda out before the meeting, and leave the room between meetings. If you've got multiple meetings back to back or within a short space of time, you need to be able to get away from that environment to give yourself a breather before you can return and give the best performance. And I can honestly say now, having worked pretty much 6 months every day at home, that is as true about virtual meetings as it is about meetings physically. So also as well about the etiquette for attendees. So it's not just all on the shoulders of the organizer. Not only do we need to be good meeting organizers, we need to be good attendees too. So accept or decline the meeting, be prepared, come and give it your all. Don't just forget about it and then stroll in either 1 minute to the meeting or 5 minutes over, and that you're unprepared. If you need to find out anything you don't think is there, reach out to the organizer. Try to be on time. There's a big problem here in the UK with people not being on time within meetings, and they just join 5-10 minutes afterwards. I don't know if that's true in all countries, but here in the UK it certainly is. It should be that we're on time, we're ready to go. It's a good reflection on us if we are ready to do what we need to. And finally, I can't emphasize this enough, is test your device setup. If you're doing virtual meetings, then try to make sure you can connect to the meeting, even if you just connect to the lobby beforehand, to make sure everything is working. You don't want to come along, you're supposed to be in the meeting, you then have a problem with your camera or your microphone, and then can't participate. It won't look so good on yourself or on the meeting organizer. So we've looked at the pre-meeting. There is a lot to consider in the pre-meeting. It's very much the same with the meeting. The first act and the second act are by far the biggest parts. Now, what do we have to consider within the meeting itself? This is the main part of the meeting, the meat on the bones. Firstly, we need to consider meeting management for the organisers. The organizer needs to know what they've got at hand in order to be able to control the meeting and ensure that it runs well. Secondly, meeting resources for attendees. What can they do within the meeting? This also applies to the organizers or the presenters, but the attendees as well. Always like to know the functionality in case they need to use it. We've also put in this section a little bit on hardware and upcoming features, because these are two important points to discuss. I'll talk a little bit more about them in about 10 minutes time. So from the management perspective, one thing we've already talked about is the lobby. The organizer needs to be able to use the lobby as a management tool. So for example, if you, again, we'll go back to that scenario of a teacher in a classroom, they would probably use only me for the lobby. They want to be inside the meeting, they want to get set up, they want to be prepared before all of the children in the class then come into the virtual Teams meeting. However, if you want what we would call a frictionless join, if I'm giving a presentation for my business to customers, we might allow everyone to bypass the lobby so that there's no waiting. They can simply at the time come into the meeting. And sometimes I also see organizations do that because there is no one to moderate, and if you're a presenter and you're having to manage everything on your own, you don't want pop-ups on the screen or accidentally leaving people in the lobby because you're already started into the presentation. So just to remember, that option only me has only been recently introduced. So some organizations I've heard are not seeing that yet. If you're not seeing that yet, have a talk with your administrator, because I'm pretty sure that you can configure it via PowerShell if you can't see it in the Teams Admin Center or in your lobby options. So using the lobby, this is quite important. Lobbies also as well, just to add the point, are good for security. Some people don't like the bypass lobby for everyone, because if you have to eject somebody from the meeting, and that is a really rare occurrence, by the way, they can get automatically straight back into the meeting. There's nothing there to almost protect and stop them getting in if they've been disrupted. Again, going down to an education scenario, if you need to eject a child from the class because, for example, they kept on muting themselves or doing something distracting, then you would want that lobby so that they couldn't get back into the class. Management roles. So we go back to these presenter and attendee roles, which again are very important to set up before the meeting, but just in case you accidentally forget, you can dynamically change these roles within the meeting itself. So you can promote to being a presenter or you can demote to being a member. You have to have the organizer or a presenter role in order to be able to change those permissions, and you would do that through what we call the meeting roster in the meeting control. So the meeting roster looks like an icon with people on it. You click that and then the meeting roster opens on the right hand side. You would then click on the user and you can either make them attendee or make them a presenter. So you can dynamically change this. And what's important here is this is particularly pertinent in Meet Now situations. So you have that instant meeting. If you're having that instant meeting, you can't set up these roles prior. So you would set up the instant meeting and then automatically, as soon as you in and people are joined, you would demote them to being members, for example, in order to restrict what they can do within the Teams meeting. You also have the capacity to be able to mute single participants or mute all in the meeting. So you would do this again through the meeting controls. You can, if you're going to mute all, you can see from the screenshot there that shows the muting of a single participant. This can only be done in a presenter role or an organizer role. It cannot be done in an attendee role. So if you set somebody as being an attendee, they can't actually mute somebody else. In addition, if you see up in this screenshot in the top right hand side, so just below the little invite somebody box, you'll see the mute all. Now mute all again can be performed by those who have presenter or organizer permissions, and this is really I would say necessary in situations where somebody has come into the Teams meeting they have forgotten to turn off their mic, and we're in the middle of having a conversation, you can then go, or in the middle of a presentation, you can then go on and mute all. But you have to be really, really careful with this functionality, because let's say we're in a situation with myself and Vesku now, and we're in a standard Teams meeting, and I'm the one that's doing the presentation. If Vesku, as that moderator and who has presenter rights, hits that mute all button, then I am going to be muted, and I'm not going to know about it unless he actually speaks to me, and that breaks the flow of the presenter. So it's really kind of recommended. One of the things I recommend to partners and customers that I speak to, if you're on your own doing a presentation, okay, try to do it on dual screen so that you've got the control to mute all on the other screen whilst you can share the other screen to be able to do the presentation, just so that you've got visibility about what is going on before using the mute all functionality. In terms, people have asked from time to time, can we do what we call hard mute? Can we force? Because people, if you mute somebody today, or even if you mute all, people can unmute themselves. Can you stop that? I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. You also have the ability to end the meeting for everyone. So this is in the drop down. So in the drop down at the top right hand side of the meeting experience, you can either leave the meeting or you can decide to force end the meeting. Now, this was introduced to conclusively end meetings. Even if the organizer, so prior to this feature, even if the organizer had left the meeting wouldn't end until everyone who attended had left, and there were people that could still be in that meeting for many hours afterwards. So what you would have to do if you wanted to end it is that after leaving the meeting, you would have to go back in so many hours later and still see if there were people in there. Now this end the meeting ends it conclusively. What we'd recommend, once you end the meeting, the associated chat still keeps on going. So mute the associated meeting chat after the meeting has ended. Otherwise, if people continue to chat, you will still get notifications in Teams. But this is a step in the right direction, and it's moving towards a situation where once we've ended the meeting, it means the meeting is ended and you can't take any more actions. It doesn't mean that all these open meetings for all time. In terms of recording, because from time to time we need to record our Teams meetings, that is shown again in the Teams meeting controls. So you go to more options, which is the 3 dots. Then you scroll down and you can see the start meeting, which looks like 2 circles, one around another. Looks like a grey recording button. So when you start the meeting recording, you get the notification across the top of the screen that the recording is underway. As you can see from the screenshot, you'll also get the red dot at the top left hand corner of the meeting stage. Now, recording behavior differs whether you have a private meeting or whether you have a channel meeting. If you have a private meeting, that's recorded into Stream, but it's not shared automatically. So you need to go into Stream after the meeting has completed, and you need to put permissions on the Stream video in order to be able to share it and the other users watch it. That's if they're inside the organization. If it's in a Teams channel meeting, it's slightly different. So again, it's recorded into Stream. But whereas with private meetings recordings, channel meeting recordings are shared automatically and they're uploaded into the meeting chat. So afterwards, you don't need to have to go and watch them in Microsoft Stream or give permissions. The people within the channel and hence within the Microsoft 365 group, that recording is going to be shared automatically with them and it's going to be uploaded into the associated meeting chat. So you just have to go to the associated meeting chat, click on it, and you will be able to watch that video. So Channel meetings, this is a big reason. If you're going to watch the recording afterwards, then channel meetings are a great choice, particularly if your meetings are within the organization. Now, just kind of a couple of more caveats to note about recording. The first is that when you do a meeting recording, it currently only supports the 2x2 view. So things that we mentioned in the new meeting experience right at the start, the large gallery and the together mode, we can't see. Secondly, external attendees cannot see the meeting recordings. If you record in your tenant, only people with inside your tenant can view the recording. That's a limitation of Microsoft Stream. You will have to download that video, you will have to share to OneDrive or share it out via SharePoint. You also have the participant list. The participant list is the downloadable list of meeting attendees. So that's something that the meeting organizer can do. Currently, we are in version 1 of the participants list. You would download from the meeting roster. You can only download during the meeting. And it also downloads to your local machine once you download it. So this is what it looks like within the actual meeting itself through the people roster. That's what it will look like when it's downloaded to your local machine. The name, whether you've joined or whether you've left, and you'll have a timestamp. There's going to be an update on that shortly. So meeting etiquette for organizers: keep track, keep on time with questions, address directly instead of open questions. It's always better to ask specific people than just to let it out to the room. Otherwise, you're typically met with a wall of silence. Mute all when necessary and utilize chat and polls. In terms of resources, I'm going to pick up a little time now because just conscious of time. In terms of joining the meeting, you have, you can join from Teams via the calendar or join directly via a channel. In Outlook, you just simply need to open the meeting invitation and join the link. So if I come into my demo environment, I come into the calendar, you can see there I can click join, or I open it up and I click join. So there are multiple ways in order to be able to join the meeting. In terms of the pre-meeting join page, you have some options available to you, whether the camera's on or off, whether you turn on background blur or have a custom background, whether audio's on and off, whether you set your speaker devices, and a couple of the buttons down the bottom are for unique scenarios. One touch audio off, which is good if you're sitting in a room with somebody and you want to prevent echo. That's how you would join the meeting. Whether you want to use your phone device like your iPhone to be a microphone, or whether you want to use a team room for the sound and project onto that. You have the ability to be able to set custom backgrounds in a meeting. So custom backgrounds is whether you have what we call background blur, which blurs out the background, or whether you put custom images. This gives a lot more of an interactive and fun experience within Teams. Now, when this was first rolled out, you had to upload the custom images on your local machine. A new add recently by Teams means you can now add custom images through the Teams client. Microsoft have provided several pre-populated backgrounds, but you can upload your own, but it's highly recommended just to avoid anything offensive or discriminatory. You can change those background images up during the meeting also. So if you've got several that you want to kind of play around with, you absolutely can do. Again, that's through the more options, the 3 dots, and apply the background effects. You've got the ability to share. You can share your desktop, your window, you can share a PowerPoint or a whiteboard. Just to note, with the sharing experience, just think about the differences between the desktop client and the browser. In the browser, you can share browser tabs, but you can't share the whiteboard. Now, this little kind of include computer sound down the bottom, really important because it allows you to use your system audio within the meeting. So if I'm playing a stream video or a YouTube video when I'm sharing my screen, that's the functionality that allows you to do so. You have the virtual whiteboard. So this is where we can draw together or ideate or visualize. The web version is the limited version that you actually use with them. So when you share and it shares the whiteboard, that's the web version. But there is a lot of recent additions. So text boxes, sticky notes, and the ability to select or move objects. It's not simply about drawing. And there is a defined roadmap for the whiteboard web experience. Vesku, I know, is a big proponent of it. But if you want the full whiteboard experience, what you have to do currently is share your whole screen and then use the desktop whiteboard. Moving on, we've got raise hand, the ability to raise a virtual hand and let you know within the meeting. That's actually defined next to the more options in the meeting controls. Now you would do this, particularly this is driven out of an edu environment. When it does, you can see the hand within the meeting roster, or is there is in the meeting gallery on the screen itself, the user actually has a yellow ring or a yellow frame if they're sharing their video. Again, this is a functionality that works optimally on dual screens, because if you are both the organizer and the presenter and are presenting your whole screen, you cannot see raised hands. So use dual screens if you can. Have your presentation on one screen, have your Teams meeting in another. Almost there, wrapping up with the meeting, we have the view modes. These are the modes that are being introduced and why it's really important to switch to the new experience. You have the large gallery mode, which is 7x7 or up to 49 users. You need a minimum of 10 to trigger it. You have together mode. Now this is an AI-based visual mode where we bring users together. So this is very good to kind of feel like you are sitting with other users in the meeting. You need a minimum of 5 to trigger that. And you also have focus mode. So focus mode is when you're sharing something like a PowerPoint and you do not want to see other members of the meeting, then you would enter focus mode and it would hide all the incoming video of other attendees. That way we could concentrate on what's being presented and not have to worry about people with their video on being distracting. A few things to finish off. Live captions, utilize captions for accessibility or noisy environments. Know where the leave button if you need to leave. Use that mute chat button. Don't just leave the meeting, but mute the chat afterwards so that you don't have to necessarily have notifications from linked conversations. And if you're on restricted bandwidth or a contested bandwidth, if you're somewhere where it's not great, you can also restrict incoming video. Now, etiquette for attendees, stay on mute when not speaking, be respectful to the presenter. Don't go ahead if you've got presenter permissions and mute all, because you'll cut out the presenter who will often be unaware. Utilize the meeting chat and raise hand, and use video only when circumstance and network support it. In other words, use it when it's needed, as opposed to either having it all on or trying to make it distracting for the presenter. Be aware that you can really take your meeting experience to a next level with hardware for what Microsoft OEM partners provide. So whether that's headsets, microphones, external cams, desk phones, collaboration bars, or Teams meeting room systems, there is something for everyone that can enhance the meeting experience. It's designed to have the best available meeting, and many users today even go beyond that. They start having busy lights and lighting within their own bedrooms or in their meeting rooms, green screens and sound bars and displays. You will see a lot of this on social, of people showing you their kit, and when you see them in a Teams meeting, it is crystal clear and the sound quality is amazing. All of the Teams certified devices can really up the meeting experience. And then you've got the upcoming features. And as I'm getting kind of on for time, I won't unfortunately have the time to go through all of these, but there's lots more features coming soon. Virtual breakouts, the ability to hard mute, which means stopping people unmuting themselves, the enhanced participant list, so that's coming with more details on users and also sent after the meeting, spotlight mode, which focuses on specific individuals, dynamic view, where you can share and see people at the same time, meeting extensions, where you can add polls and third-party apps to meetings. And one of the ones that I know that Vesku is looking forward to is the ability to put PowerPoint live presentations into Teams too. So there's lots more coming. Of all the stuff I've shown you today, don't think it's letting up. Microsoft are putting a lot of features, and all the things you see here is on the roadmap. Go and have a look at the Microsoft 365 roadmap. They're coming in the next 2 months, 2, 3, 4 months. So the post meeting, this is a really short section. We have to think about how we're sharing meeting notes, how we're sharing those recordings, how we're sharing our tasks, and how we continue to work. So with the meeting notes, OneNote is really recommended. Some people say, well, what about the meeting notes in the meeting? With meeting notes in the meeting, you can't print them, you can't share them out. They're kind of stuck at, or linked to the meeting. So most organizations I know use OneNote. For internal users, okay, you've got, you can have an associated team notebook, and for external users, you can share that notebook externally through OneNote. So you've got a lot more functionality within OneNote. It's a really rich product. So OneNote is recommended for notes after the meeting. In terms of the recording, you have Stream, that's very much linked to Teams. As said, for internal users, just remember that for private meetings, give permissions and share. For channel meetings, everything is shared automatically. For external users, because of the limitations with Stream, you'll have to download and share via OneDrive or SharePoint at the current time. With tasks for Microsoft Teams, you have Planner. You also have To Do. So Planner and To Do. Planner are for Teams tasks, To Do are for personal tasks. This is coming together with tasks for Microsoft Teams, and this is really the recommendation. We know this is coming. It's pretty much there already. So that's a personal app on the app bar. So on the left side of Teams, it'll give you that single unified view of tasks. It'll give you list, board, chart and schedule views of your planner tasks. And best of all, you'll be able to use it in your desktop, web and mobile. This is what we've wanted for a long time. This is a unified view of our tasks. It's bringing To Do and Planner all together. It's currently, on that cusp of development and rolling out. So you may or may not see it in your tenant very soon. And finally, continue working in teams. After the meeting, continue working in teams together with follow-ups. Bring all your other apps together in order to support the meeting as you work towards the next one. We want all our meetings to be driven from Teams. We want all our discussions. We want to bring our apps together. Continue, drive people to continue the discussion. Create new channels if you have to, create new teams if you have to, but keep on discussing about the work within Teams. So we've talked about the intelligent meeting lifecycle. We've really broken it down, and I know it's been quite a fire hose session in terms of the features and functionalities of Teams meetings. When I did this talk back a few months ago, it was not even half the amount of features. It's come away in a really short time because of COVID, because Microsoft has responded to what people want to see in meetings. We've used the intelligent meeting lifecycle, the birth, the life and the death, the pre-meeting, the meeting and the post-meeting. We've compartmentalized it down. And if you do that with Teams meetings, you not only structure your meetings, but you can do each part very, very well and focus on each part of the meeting. Here are some useful links that you can share. This session is being recorded, so hopefully you will have some time to maybe come back and have a look at these links. But also as well, Microsoft Ignite is coming up, and we're going to hear about a lot more features of Microsoft Teams meetings. The ones that I showed you today are the ones that are already on the roadmap and committed to. So I'd like to say thank you ever so much. It's been a great session. I do think that I'm probably a few minutes later than I needed to be. The survey link is right there for you, aka.ms/reactor/survey. And please join the Reactor community. Hopefully you can continue to see a lot more presentations like this. I really hope that you're around for the rest of the series. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thanks ever so much for your time this afternoon. And now we can move on to our Q&A. So Vesa, have we got any questions that need to be asked? Or have you answered?
Yes, we have plenty of questions. I've been trying to answer some of those on the run as well, but I just didn't have time to reply everyone. And yeah, that's good. You had a lot of activity there. But let's pick up one of those. What integration is there between Planner tasks and Microsoft project? Is any planned?
Between Microsoft, sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, integration is there between Planner tasks and Microsoft project? Is any planned?
Yeah, so in terms of Planner tasks and projects, so Planner and tasks, I think that you've seen the Teams task. So Teams task for Microsoft Teams is bringing together Planner and Microsoft to do. Now, in terms of Microsoft project, that is still currently, I would say, still sitting a little bit outside of Microsoft Teams, and I would expect and hope that there will be some news at Microsoft Ignite next week that we could, because Microsoft project has been on a very much an integration with the rest of the Microsoft 365 stack, very much like Visio. It was very kind of set apart and it's being more and more integrated. So it'll be interesting to see some updates in Ignite next week. In terms of Planner and project, there is often this, I would say, misinterpretation that Planner is a light project, as it were. Some people think that because Planner is included within the price of Microsoft 365, that Planner can be used for proper project management, so like PMO. I would always recommend that isn't the case. There's a big difference between them in terms of functionality. So Planner is a lightweight application for being able to coordinate tasks really across teams or groups of individuals, whereas project is for full project management. So what you would see is things like Gantt charts within the project product. So Teams is coming together with Planner in terms of tasks, even though Planner will still be a separate app within itself. But as regards Microsoft project, that's continuing to be integrated. But at this moment in time, they're still pretty disparate and we're just waiting to hear from the news.
Okay, I'm going to hit the next one. How can we track activity of guests in Teams? I thought I'd take a short one for you to answer.
That's a pretty long question. In terms of activities, is that what guests actually do? Is that what like all of their actions, or is that when they access your tenant?
It's track the activity of guests in Teams. Hopefully the one who asked the question can kind of reply it more to be a bit more specific.
Yeah, I mean, well, in terms of guests within, I guess this is a talk on Teams meetings, and in terms of the Teams meetings, we do have, the participant list. So when participant users join and when they leave currently, in the enhanced participant list that we set in the upcoming features, that's not only going to be downloaded after the meeting, but that's also going to be there. That's going to have their email address within inside it, and it's then going to show exactly and precisely when the meeting starts, when they joined it, when they left it. So it's going to be able to identify those guests a little bit easier. In terms of actions within the meeting, those can be defined by presenter and attendee. If you're talking about meetings or guests, kind of tracking what guests can do inside your 365 environment, then I would recommend taking a look at a few areas. I'd recommend taking a look at the audit log inside the 365 Security and Compliance Center. I would also recommend looking at the Azure AD logs in terms of that could potentially give you some information too. In terms of a granular report for everything that they do when they access your environment, so if they access your team and that they do a let's say they engage in a conversation and they used a specific app, I don't think there's any logs. I mean, correct me, Vesku, if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything like that currently today.
No, I don't think so. If there's some follow-up activity besides that, I don't think they appear on the participant list from the meeting. Yes, guests do appear in the participant list.
Correct.
They appear there, so they might have left already before you have hit the download the report. Currently, the report is not the perfect one, so I guess that's most likely the case.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think everyone agrees that at this moment the participant list is not where they want it to be. If you look at social from people in and around Microsoft, people like Laurie Potmay or Caruana Gatamu, who are on the Teams team, they've said this is very much a version 1 and that it's a feature that is in progress. It was a bit like the background blur or should I say the custom background images. When that was first released, it was a version 1. Now, I mean, people are used to now being able to use the Teams client to add their custom image, but before that, the only way you could do so was on a Windows machine as a workaround to be able to sneak a custom image in there. There was no functionality within Teams to be able to do that. So participant list is a bit like that. It's a version 1. The version 2 is as said, it will be downloaded after the meeting. It will be in the meeting chat for the organizer and the organizer alone, and it will also have information such as the email address that was announced a few days ago in the message center. So we're on the right track. We're moving in the right direction. It might not be 100%. So for example, it still downloads to the local machine instead of downloading to OneDrive, but we really need to use our voices, and if there's something there that is not there, we need to go to Teams user voice and to be able to vote on it or raise it if it's not there already.
Okay, there's more questions, of course. How much do you have time?
I'm good to stay on as well.
Okay, yes, we can answer some of the more questions. I'm going to take the one that has been lingering there for a long time. I did some answers, but the most interesting part on that question was basically from best practices point of view. What are the do's and don'ts regarding having a post and replies for a specific meeting inside a channel? So basically, your do's and don'ts for the channel meeting.
So I use channel meetings in terms of having a weekly catch up with the team. So I virtually manage some individuals inside my organization. I would basically say I normally keep them to, kind of within, it's very much linked to the team and the Microsoft 365 group. So everyone who's within that team and within that Microsoft 365 group will be able to attend that. So what I kind of do in terms of in the channel meeting that I run is you have to make, if there's more people in that team then you want to attend that meeting, you have to set out from the start at who's invited to that, that meeting, or alternatively you can look to create another team with which to hold that meeting. So that's the point I was trying to get to, and that I made another team to have the people that I wanted to attend that meeting so that we could all work together and go to that channel meeting, and nobody else would be outside of that. So that is something that I'd recommend if you're using channel meetings. The second thing is set and let people understand and learn about how to access the channel meeting. So it's not like most people will not turn on any or get notifications because they're not linked to updates from the Microsoft 365 group. They're not subscribing, right? So most of them don't get calendar notifications. So they need to understand that if you're having, for example, a recurring channel meeting, then people need to go in and click join in that channel at the given time each week, or then go on and book a recurring meeting in Outlook to make sure and give themselves a reminder, because that's probably the biggest issue I find with channel meetings, is that people don't subscribe to the Microsoft 365 group. They don't get notified of that channel meeting, and then what happens is they don't put anything in their diaries and typically miss it. So try to fill in the gaps there. Otherwise, the channel meeting, when you run it, is very much like having a normal private meeting. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Vesku. Do you use channel meetings a lot?
Yes, I use them a lot. What I really like about the channel meetings is that everybody in the team can see there's a meeting going on. So you can basically draft in people, and then you can kind of have the conversation going on even when you are not in the meeting, and you can kind of see that is happening, and you can even interact with the meeting. And of course, what I really like about them is that you can, especially if you have guests in the team, you can use files.
Yeah, and what I like also, another point that I kind of that didn't come to my mind, but when Vesku was talking about it, is the notes. Is the notes in one? You know, things are consistent, particularly on recurring meetings within channels. So, for example, the chat is linked between the multiple instances of the meeting. The notes are linked between multiple instances of the meeting, so it almost picks back up where you left it off last week. Is that, you know, you can almost thread it through the recurring meetings with channel meetings. So that's what I like about them. It's a consistency. You don't have to almost start a completely new set of notes or start a completely set of conversations, and when you're looking back on it, they're all in disparate parts. With channel meetings, it's much more, it's almost like a thread that runs through them.
And yes, could you put the contact links slide back? I think it was requested here, so we have some information there. There's a lot of questions popping in all the time. What I wanted to, one is easy one. Does Microsoft Lync continue as an online meeting option, or is it being replaced?
So sorry, what was
that? Does Microsoft Lync, or let's just replace that with Skype, continue an online meeting option, or is it being replaced?
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, then Skype for Business comes to online, shall I say, Skype for Business online comes to end on July the 31st, 2021. So we're only 3/4 of a year away from that. Now, when they first announced it, I think it was almost 2 years. You know, there was 2 years, and so time's gone very, very, very fast. We'll be in July. What'll feel like tomorrow. So if you're still using Skype for Business online at this current time, then it's recommended to make the migration to Microsoft Teams. And you can do that by looking at docs.com. There's plenty of videos online on YouTube about how to move from Skype for Business online to Microsoft Teams and manage that inside your organization. Also have a look out for a session at Microsoft Ignite too. They typically at the big conferences at least run one session on migrating from Skype for Teams, and it's going to be very important over the course of the next year as we get to the later stages of that migration. So Microsoft have been moving, and organizations who have been using Skype for Business have been migrating to Microsoft Teams for a long while now.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments about chat in the meetings. The classic dilemma in chat meetings, even if you remove the person from the chat, they will still have access to everything they had access while they were a member of the chat. So basically, that's the issue currently.
That's the issue currently that we were talking about. So you can end the meeting for, you know, if I leave the meeting, I'm still associated with the meeting chat. Now you can go on Teams user voice today, and if you type in the following, end meeting means end meeting, you will see a user voice that was raised by myself, that when the meeting ends and you click end meeting, that basically it closes down the associated meeting chat. In other words, grays it out for all participants, that they can't add anything more. It freezes it right there. So that's a big thing at this moment in time in the tech community. MVPs ask about it all the time. I'm very passionate about that. I like that when a meeting ends, there is nothing after that point, so everything shuts down.
Yeah, that's true. And basically, if you do a chat, I think this is related that person who wrote the comment, why not use a chat for the meeting where you want to include only a subset of team. So how I interpret this, that you could generate a new chat with those people you want to chat in private, even if your meeting is in the channel, or if you are doing a private meeting, which is the regular meeting in Teams, and then you want to just chat with the others, then you create another chat group for that.
Absolutely. Create a private channel, do a meet now, and then because you can do a meet now within a private channel, and then if you want to get people to join it, copy the meeting details in a meet now and then post it to other users. That's a good way to get around and just doing it with a subset of the team. There's lots of people that ask for that in the tech community, because that's another big ask. When are you going to be able to schedule meetings within private channels? Because at the moment you can't do, but that's a user voice. But that workaround, create the private channel with the people that you want. Hit up the meet now and then send them the link to join that meeting, and then you can have what you need.
Or the other way is that you just create another private meeting with just those people who you want to be included, if you are not doing a channel meeting. But channel meetings have their advantages, like you have everything you had in the meeting, it's going to be stored in the channel. And then there was one question about, can meeting links be generated outside Outlook, or has to be Outlook?
So meeting links, you can generate meeting links outside of Outlook, but you have to go back into the Teams meeting. So once you've booked it, for example, so let's say that I've got my meeting. If I click on it, you can see that I've got the link there.
Yeah.
You can alternatively get that link, okay, if you actually join the meeting itself, go to the meeting details and select copy link. Then again, so you can get the link without having to use Outlook, if that is what you mean. It's not. It's just in Outlook where that link shows.
Yeah, there are multiple places that create meeting links in Office 365. But most useful places are basically the Teams interface and the Outlook.
And also as well, to build on top, and this is something that Vesku and I have used a couple of times, is that you can use a URL generator as well, such as bit.ly. Or so what you can do is that you can set up your Teams meeting, and then if you wanted to publicly have a link without actually using the link itself, you can also rebrand the link as well and put it in front of the Teams meeting or the live event. In fact, that's what Microsoft recommends to do for live events, and which Lee Ford might discuss next week.
Yeah, exactly. There's one more question, at least at this point. Can you migrate the contacts, chats, and files from Skype for Business account that exists but is no longer being subscribed?
So Microsoft does have a meeting migrator. That it actually teaches you. That's actually part of the MS700 Managing Microsoft Teams exam. So it should migrate meetings over.
But if it's no longer being subscribed, it means it doesn't have a license.
Exactly. That would be something that that either we could take that away or recommend. I would. You know what I would say? I would say raise that on the Microsoft Tech community, and I will look into that personally for you. So that is something I can take away from today. So if you're not part of it already, techcommunity.microsoft.com, join the Teams community, raise a ticket there, we'll raise a question there, and then myself, Adam, Vesku, and a few others will all get on it for you and get you a conclusive answer to that question.
Yeah, and as a workaround, quickly what I was thinking about, just assign a license temporarily for that account and do the migration basically.
Yeah.
Or migrate that user as a Teams only user, because that's when the meeting migrator will run. But and you can import the contacts there, but you don't get chats and the files. They are slightly different with the Teams. You will get contacts and you will get meetings, but the chats you will find in the old accounts, Outlook conversation history folder, and the files are most likely when they were in Skype for Business meetings. I don't actually know where they were. They were in some Skype for Business contact, so those won't be transferred to the Teams.
Correct. So you could, licensing up would potentially be one way, if that is the context in which you mean by the question. So what I would recommend is that if you put it through to the tech community, if you could describe it for us in full, in terms of that situation with that user. As said, Vesku and I are kind of batting some ideas around as to what it could possibly be, but that makes a lot of assumptions. If you could write it out in full for us about that user, because as Vesku says, and as I said previously, the meeting migration service is involved in moves from Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams, but we would need to double check just to make sure. So hope to see you in the tech community this evening or tomorrow.
Okay, there was a follow-up like, thanks for the answer, the contacts can be exported to CSV. Maybe it's easier. Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, it's like doing mailbox migrations where sometimes, you can use an automated migration tool to be able to move it, but at the same, or automated mailbox moves in hybrid, but sometimes it's just quicker to export the actual CSV straight out of the mailbox and port it. So if this is something that you need to do right now, as in this week, or kind of move very fast on it, then that could be the option for you.
All right, I think we have basically gone through all the questions.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chris. That was amazing, and I'm sure Emma is sharing these recordings and things in that Reactor zone.
Yeah, we really hope that everything has been great for you. We know that you've stayed a little bit over time, and we thank you for that. And we've hoped we've managed to answer your questions. It's really important to us. I hope that you've had a really great experience, that you've managed to, if not learn everything, pick up a few things that you can take away and get started just to run your meeting better.
And Chris, you got high prizes for your presentation, so you did good.
Oh, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. I hope to be back at the Reactor soon. In fact, actually, we'll have a talk to Emma, because I mean, me and Vesku, as said, we've known each other a while now, and we're thinking about doing a lot more presentations together. So this was actually really good learning experience for us too.
Yeah, it was fun. Hey, thank you everyone. It was a pleasure to be here. Hopefully I got to answer questions as well when Chris was speaking.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much, Chris and Vesku, for your time today, for your comprehensive answers, and thank you to everyone for all of your fantastic questions too. Hope to see you again at part 2, which is next Monday, 4 p.m. British Summer Time, and that will be a deep dive into Teams live events with Lee Ford. So hope to see you all then, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.